The can of beans sat in Daniel Foster's shaking hands. His last food, 4 days without eating, fever burning at 103, like lungs filling with blood, and 20 feet away a stranger was dying in the snow. Daniel looked at the beans, looked at the May, looked at the beans again. Then he made his choice. He gave away his last meal to save a stranger he'd never met. That stranger was the president of the Hells Angels. 48 hours later, 50 bikers showed up at Daniel's shack with trucks full of lumber. What happened next will change how you see humanity forever. Subscribe now, stay until the end, and comment what city you are watching from. This is the story of how one can of beans built a revolution. The coughing woke Daniel Foster at 4 a.m. He rolled onto his side and hacked into his fist. Wet, deep, the kind of cough that rattles your whole chest. When he pulled his hand back, dark spots stained his palm. Blood. Not good, he muttered. Not good at all. He was 54 years old, 2 tours in Iraq, Bronze Star recipient, and he was coughing blood in a shack made of plywood and plastic sheeting in the worst part of Detroit. His stomach cramped hard. 4 days without food will do that. The hunger had stopped yesterday. That scared him more than the blood. When your body stops asking for food, it means your body is starting to shut down. Daniel sat up slowly. His head swam. Fever, 103, maybe higher. He could feel it cooking his brain. The shoebox sat next to his cot. He reached inside and pulled out the can of beans. His last food. He'd been saving it for 3 days now, telling himself the same lie over and over. Tomorrow. Eat it tomorrow. You might need it more tomorrow. But tomorrow kept coming and Daniel kept not eating. He put the can back and reached deeper into the box. His fingers found cold metal, the Bronze Star. He held it up to the gray light filtering through his plastic window. The ribbon had faded. The bronze was tarnished, but he could still feel the weight of it. The weight of everything it represented. Ramadi, he whispered. 2007. The memories came whether he wanted them or not. Sergeant Williams was screaming. The IED had flipped their Humvee onto its side, flames everywhere, smoke so thick Daniel couldn't see his own hands. Gunfire cracking from somewhere to the east. Foster, Foster, help me! Daniel ran toward the voice. His ears were ringing from the blast. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. None of that mattered. Williams was trapped. His legs were pinned under the dashboard. The fire was spreading. I got you, brother! I got you! Daniel grabbed Williams under the arms and pulled. The sergeant screamed. Something in his leg made a sound like snapping wood. Daniel pulled anyway. 30 feet to cover, 30 feet through open ground with bullets snapping past his head. He made it, dropped Williams behind a concrete barrier, turned back toward the Humvee. Torres is still in there. Private Torres, 22 years old, wife back home in Texas, baby on the way. Daniel ran back into the fire. He reached the Humvee just as the second explosion hit. Daniel opened his eyes. His hands were shaking. The Bronze Star trembled in his grip. You didn't make it, Torres, he said quietly. I'm sorry, I tried. Williams died on the medevac helicopter. Internal bleeding. Too much damage. 2 men dead. Daniel got a medal, some reward. He put the Bronze Star back in the shoebox and forced himself to stand. The world tilted sideways. He grabbed the wall and waited for everything to stop spinning. Come on, Foster. Move it. You've got work to find. The walk to downtown Detroit took 2 hours. Daniel's boots had holes in them. Water seeped through with every step. By the time he reached the business district, his feet were numb. Henderson Manufacturing. That was his target today. He'd seen the sign last week. Floor supervisor position. $52,000 a year plus benefits. He pushed through the glass doors and approached the front desk. The receptionist looked up. Her eyes did that thing, that quick scan, taking in the worn jacket, the unshaven face, the weathered boots. Can I help you? I'm here about the floor supervisor position. Do you have an appointment? No, ma'am, but I have experience. I manage supply logistics for... Mr. Henderson doesn't see walk-ins. Her voice was polite, but her eyes had already dismissed him. Leave your resume. We'll call you. I don't have a resume with me, but if you could just let me speak to... Sir. The receptionist's smile tightened. We'll call you. Daniel stood there for a moment. He thought about pushing, thought about demanding to see someone, thought about explaining that he'd coordinated supply convoys through active combat zones, that he'd managed men under fire, that he'd done more before breakfast than most people do in a week. But he saw it in her eyes. The decision was already made. He was invisible to her. Just another homeless guy looking for a handout. "Thank you for your time," he said. The door closed behind him with a soft click. 31. That was 31 rejections in 2 months. Swam. The Veterans Affairs office was 15 minutes away. Daniel walked fast despite his exhaustion. Moving helped. Standing still made everything worse. Sandra Mitchell was at her desk when he arrived. She was a good woman, mid-50s, wedding ring, photos of grandchildren on her desk. She'd been trying to help him for 3 years. Trying wasn't the same as succeeding. "Daniel," she smiled when she saw him. "Come on back." He sat in the plastic chair across from her desk. The chair wobbled. It had been wobbling for 2 years. "I checked on your housing application," Sandra said, pulling up her computer. "You're still on the wait list." "Where am I?" 63. Daniel blinked. "I was 58 last month. Emergency cases got moved up. Families with children. So I went backwards." "I'm sorry, Daniel." He nodded slowly. "Kids first. That was right. That was fair. But fair didn't make it hurt less." "What about the job placement program?" Sandra's face changed. That subtle shift that meant bad news. "Funding got cut. The program suspended." "Suspended how long?" "Indefinitely." Daniel stared at her. "So that's it. There's nothing." "I'm trying, Daniel. I really am. But the budget." "The budget?" Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I keep hearing about the budget. You know what I gave this country, Sandra? 2 tours. My marriage, my health. I watched my friends die. I still hear the explosions when I close my eyes." He leaned forward. "And now you're telling me there's no money. Not even enough to help me find a job." Sandra looked down at her desk. "I'm sorry." "Yeah." Daniel stood up. "Everyone's sorry. But sorry doesn't keep you warm at night." He walked out without looking back. The coughing fit hit him on the corner of Michigan Avenue. Daniel doubled over, hands on his knees. Each cough felt like a knife in his chest. People walked past him without slowing down. A woman pulled her child closer and hurried by. When the fit finally passed, Daniel straightened up and wiped his mouth. Blood on his hand again? "You need a doctor," he told himself. "You need medicine. You need help. But doctors cost money. Medicine cost money. Help cost money." And Daniel had exactly $4.67 to his name. Patterson's pawn shop appeared on his left. Daniel stopped walking. The neon sign buzzed in the window. "We buy gold medals, military items." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the bronze star. The metal caught the gray winter light. Tarnished bronze. Faded ribbon, but still recognizable. Still worth something to somebody. $30, maybe $40, Daniel muttered. Enough for food, maybe some medicine. He took a step toward the door. Stopped. Williams was screaming in his memory. Torres was burning. The Humvee was exploding over and over in an endless loop. "You boys would understand," Daniel whispered. "Right. Sometimes you gotta let go to survive." He stood there for 5 minutes. 10, 15. His hand was on the door handle when he stopped. No. He put the medal back in his pocket. Not today, not ever. He walked away from the pawn shop with nothing but his hunger and his pride. Damn. The shack was cold when Daniel got back. Colder than usual. The temperature was dropping fast. He could feel it in his bones. The radio in the abandoned building next door was loud enough to hear through the walls. Historic polar vortex approaching the Great Lakes region. Temperatures expected to drop to -20 degrees. This is a life-threatening weather event. All residents are urged to stay indoors and avoid unnecessary travel. Daniel reinforced his walls with extra plastic sheeting. He checked the door seal, made sure his matches were dry. The can of beans sat in his shoebox, still unopened. Tomorrow, he told himself again. Save it for tomorrow. His stomach cramped so hard he had to bite his lip to keep from crying out. Tomorrow. He climbed under his blanket and closed his eyes. The nightmare came fast. Daniel was back in Ramadi. The Humvee was burning. Williams was screaming. Torres was trapped. "Foster, help me, Foster!" He ran toward the fire. His legs felt like they were moving through mud. No matter how fast he ran, he couldn't get closer. "I'm coming! Hold on!" The second explosion hit. The world turned white. Foster. Daniel jerked awake, gasping. His heart was pounding. Sweat soaked his blanket despite the cold. "Just a dream," he whispered. "Just a dream." But it wasn't just a dream. It was a memory. And memories don't fade just because you want them to. The wind was howling outside. The storm had arrived. Daniel lay back down and stared at the ceiling. One more night, he told himself. Just survive one more night. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep. The crash came at 3:47 a.m. Daniel heard it through the walls, metal against concrete, the screech of something sliding, a heavy thud, then silence. He lay still listening. Maybe it was nothing, debris blown by the wind, a trash can knocked over. But something made him get up. Something made him look through the plastic window. Through the swirling snow he could barely see. But there was definitely something out there, a dark shape on the ground, near the railroad tracks. Not something, someone. "Don't do it, Foster." He said the words out loud. "You go out there, you might not come back." The shape wasn't moving. "It's not your problem. You can barely stand up straight." The wind gusted hard enough to rattle his walls. "Just go back to bed. Nobody would blame you." But even as he said it, Daniel was already reaching for his flashlight. Because he knew. He knew he couldn't let someone die out there. Not if he could help it. Not again. Jim. Daniel pushed open his door and stepped into the storm. The cold hit him like a sledgehammer. Wind gusted at 50 miles per hour. Snow drove into his face like needles. Each breath was fire and ice at the same time. 20 feet. The shape was maybe 20 feet away. It might as well have been a mile. Daniel pushed forward. The snow was up to his knees already. His boots filled with ice. His fingers went numb in seconds. "Please be alive," he muttered. "Please, God, let him be alive." 10 feet, 5 feet. He dropped to his knees beside the shape. It was a man, big, massive shoulders, leather jacket torn open, blood freezing on the snow around his head. Daniel grabbed the man's wrist, checked for a pulse. Weak, thready, but there. Hey, can you hear me?" No response. "Come on, brother, wake up." Nothing. The man's lips were turning blue. His skin was gray. Hypothermia was setting in fast. Daniel grabbed him under the arms and pulled. The stranger weighed at least 240, maybe 250. Dead weight. Moving him was like trying to drag a truck through quicksand. Daniel pulled anyway. His chest screamed. The coughing started again, violent and wet. Blood sprayed from his lips and froze on the snow. He pulled anyway. 10 feet. 15. His vision started to blur. His legs buckled. He pulled anyway. 20 feet. His hand found the door of his shack. He kicked it open, dragged the stranger inside, collapsed against the wall. For 30 seconds, Daniel couldn't do anything but gasp for air. Stars exploded behind his eyes. His lungs felt like they were filled with broken glass. But the stranger was inside. Now Daniel just had to keep him alive. Hypothermia kills by stealing heat faster than the body can make it. Daniel knew the treatment. Strip wet clothes, add dry layers, provide external heat. He worked fast, pulled off the stranger's frozen jacket, yanked off his ice-crusted shirt. That's when he saw the tattoos. And the patch. Daniel froze. He knew that patch. Everyone knew that patch. Hell's Angels. The man lying on his floor was a Hell's Angel. For a moment, Daniel didn't move. His mind raced through every story he had ever heard. The violence, the crime, the reputation. Then the stranger shivered violently and none of it mattered anymore. "Doesn't matter who you are," Daniel muttered. "You're not dying in my house." He piled every blanket he owned on top of the biker. Then he did the only thing he could do. He climbed under the blankets himself. Body heat, the only way to save a hypothermia victim when you have nothing else. Daniel pressed his fevered body against the stranger's frozen one. Fire meeting ice. The contrast was shocking, almost unbearable. But he didn't move. For 3 hours, Daniel lay there, shivering, coughing, fighting to stay conscious. The stranger's skin slowly warmed. His breathing steadied. His color started to come back. Around 6 a.m., Daniel felt the man move. Where? The voice was rough, confused. Where am I? My place. Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. You crashed outside, hypothermia. The stranger tried to sit up, groaned, grabbed his head. My bike. Buried 3 feet of snow by now. The stranger looked around the shack, taking in the plywood walls, the plastic windows, the complete absence of anything resembling comfort. You live here? Yeah. Jesus Christ. Daniel coughed. The wet rattling sound filled the small space. You don't sound good, brother. Been better. Daniel forced himself to sit up. You hungry? He reached for the shoebox, pulled out the can of beans. His last food. His only food. Here. The biker stared at the can, then at Daniel, then at the empty shack. This is all you got. Take it. I can't take your take it. Daniel pressed the can into the stranger's hands. I've gone without before. I'll manage. The stranger's eyes moved to the shoebox, to the bronze star sitting inside. You're a vet. 2 tours, Iraq. What's your name, soldier? Daniel. Daniel Foster. The stranger extended his hand. His grip was cold but strong. They call me Axel. Axel Stone. He paused. President of the Detroit chapter of the Hells Angels. Daniel felt something shift in the air, something he couldn't name. You just gave your last food to a Hells Angel, Axel said slowly. Whitewell, you were dying. I wasn't going to let that happen. Even if it means you might die instead. Daniel thought about Williams, about Torres, about all the men he couldn't save. Wouldn't be the first time I made that trade. Axel ate the beans in silence. When he finished, he set down the can and studied Daniel with those ice blue eyes. That bronze star, what did you do to earn it? Daniel's jaw tightened. Nothing worth talking about. Tell me anyway. For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. The wind howled outside. The silence stretched between them. Then the words came. Ramadi, 2007, our convoy got hit. 2 of my guys were trapped in a burning Humvee. I went back for them. Did they make it? Daniel closed his eyes. No. Axel nodded slowly. You ran into a burning vehicle to save men who didn't survive. And you think that's nothing. I failed them. You tried. That's more than most people ever do. Axel leaned forward. Listen to me, Daniel Foster. You just saved my life. You gave me your last food. You're sick as hell, probably dying, and you still dragged me out of a blizzard. Anyone would... No, Axel's voice was hard. No, they wouldn't. I've been around a long time. I've seen what people do when it costs them something. Most people would have stayed in their warm shack and let me freeze. Daniel had no response. Get some rest, Axel said. We'll talk when the storm passes. Daniel wanted to argue, but his body had other ideas. His eyes closed. For the first time in years, he slept without nightmares. Daniel woke to the sound of a voice. Axel was standing by the door holding a phone. Tank, it's Axel. Yeah, I'm alive. Listen, I need the crew. All of them. Every single one. No, not a fight. Something more important. Get everyone to the old Packard plant. East side vacant lot. You'll see a shack. Yeah, a shack. Just get here. He ended the call. What are you doing? Daniel asked. Returning a favor. I don't need a shut up, soldier. Axel's voice was almost gentle. This isn't about what you need. It's about what you deserve. Daniel stared at him. How long have you lived like this? Axel asked. 3 years. 3 years, no heat, no water, no food. Axel shook his head. You served this country. You saved my life. You gave me everything you had. That doesn't mean... It means everything. Axel walked over and stood directly in front of Daniel. You saved a Hell's Angel. You know what that makes you. Daniel shook his head. Family. The word hung in the air. I don't have family, Daniel said quietly. You do now. 2 hours later, Daniel heard something that made no sense. Motorcycles, dozens of them, the roar of engines cutting through the silence. He pushed open his door and froze. 50 motorcycles filled the vacant lot. Chrome gleaming, leather everywhere, the Hells Angels patch on every back, and trucks, 6 of them, loaded with lumber, tools, building materials. Axel appeared beside him. "What is this?" Daniel whispered. "This is the Hells Angels saying thank you." A massive man with a shaved head stepped forward. "I'm Tank. Axel told us what you did." Another biker, gray beard, kind eyes. "Name's Ghost, Marine Corps, Vietnam." Preacher, Army, Desert Storm. Razor, Navy, Gulf War. One by one they introduced themselves. Nearly half of them were veterans. Daniel felt his throat tighten. "We're going to build you a house," Axel said. "A real house. Right here. Right now." Daniel opened his mouth. No words came out. "You saved one of us," Axel said. "That means you are one of us, and we never ever leave family behind." Daniel Foster hadn't cried since Ramadi, but standing there in the snow, surrounded by 50 bikers who had come to rebuild his life, tears ran down his face. And for the first time in 7 years, he didn't feel alone. The first nail went in at exactly 8:47 a.m. Tank swung the hammer like he'd been building houses his whole life. The sound echoed across the vacant lot, sharp and clean against the morning cold. Daniel stood watching still, not quite believing what he was seeing. 50 Hells Angels, 50 motorcycles, 6 trucks full of building materials. All of them here for him. "You gonna stand there all day, or you gonna help?" The voice belonged to Ghost, the Vietnam vet with the gray beard. He held out a hammer toward Daniel. I don't know what to say." "Don't say nothing, just work." Daniel took the hammer. It felt good in his hand, solid, real. "You know construction?" Ghost asked. "Built FOBs in Fallujah, forward operating bases." Ghost grinned. "Then you know more than half these knuckleheads. Come on, I'll show you where we're starting." Daniel followed him toward the growing frame of what would become his house. His house. The words didn't make sense yet. Maybe they never would. Axel appeared beside him as they walked. "How you feeling, soldier?" "Like I'm dreaming." "You're not dreaming. This is real." Axel put a hand on his shoulder. "Every single one of these men dropped what they were doing to come here. Tank drove 4 hours from Toledo. Preacher came up from Cincinnati. Razor flew in from Cleveland. Why? Because you saved my life. And in this family, that means something." Daniel's throat tightened. He couldn't speak. "Now get to work," Axel said. "We got a house to build." The morning passed in a blur of hammers and saws and shouted instructions. Daniel worked alongside men covered in tattoos and leather men who looked like they could kill you without breaking a sweat. But they were gentle with the wood, careful with the measurements, precise in a way that surprised him. "You seem shocked," Ghost said during a water break. "I guess I expected what? Chaos, violence." Daniel shrugged. Ghost laughed. "Brother, half these guys are veterans. The other half grew up with nothing. We know what it means to build something with your own hands. We know what it means to take care of each other." "I'm starting to see that." "Good. Now drink your water and get back to work. We got walls to frame before dark." By noon, the skeleton of a house stood where Daniel's shack had been. Real walls, real support beams, a foundation that wouldn't shake in the wind. Daniel stood back and stared at it, overwhelmed. "Not bad for a morning's work," Tank said, appearing beside him. The massive biker wiped sweat from his shaved head. "Should have the roof on by tonight if the weather holds." "I still don't understand." "Understand what?" "Why you're all doing this. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Tank crossed his arms and studied Daniel for a long moment. "Let me tell you something about Axel Stone. That man saved my life 6 years ago. I was living in my car, strung out on pills, ready to eat a bullet. Axel found me, cleaned me up, gave me a reason to live. I didn't know. Most people don't. They see the leather and the patches, and they think they know who we are. They don't know nothing." Tank pointed at the construction crew. "See Preacher over there. He spent 3 years in prison for assault. Got out with nothing. Nowhere to go. Axel gave him a home. And Ghost, Vietnam, 3 tours, came back to a country that spit on him. Lost everything. Wife, kids, house. Axel found him sleeping under a bridge 10 years ago. Daniel watched the men work. Saw them in a different light now. "We're all broken, brother," Tank said quietly. "Every single one of us. But broken doesn't mean worthless. Axel taught us that. Now we're teaching you. Daniel felt tears threatening again. He blinked them back. Thank you, he managed. Don't thank me yet. We're just getting started. The afternoon brought more trucks. A white van pulled up around 2 p.m. The side door slid open and a woman in medical scrubs stepped out. That's Doc Chen, Tank explained. Best emergency room doctor in Detroit. Also happens to be married to Razor. Dr. Sarah Chen walked straight toward Daniel with a medical bag in her hand. You're Daniel Foster. Yes, ma'am. Axel tells me you're sick. Coughing blood. Fever. I'm fine, Sarah. You're not fine. You're stubborn. There's a difference. She pointed to a folding chair someone had set up near one of the trucks. Sit. Really, I don't need sit now. Daniel sat. Chen pressed a stethoscope to his chest and listened. Her expression grew more serious with each breath. Left lung sounds like a war zone. When did the coughing start? About a week ago. The blood, 3 days. And you didn't see a doctor because doctors cost money. Dr. Chen sighed. Pneumonia, left lung is infected, probably bacterial. She reached into her bag and pulled out a bottle of pills. Antibiotics. Take 2 now, then 1 every 8 hours for 10 days. You miss a dose, I'll know, and I'll come find you. I can't pay for... Did I ask for money? Daniel stared at her. My father was Army, Dr. Chen said, her voice softer now. Korea, 2 tours. When he came home, nobody helped him. He struggled for years. I swore I would never let that happen to another veteran if I could prevent it. She pressed the pills into his hand. Take them. Get better. Build your house. Daniel swallowed the first 2 pills with a bottle of water someone handed him. Thank you, he said. Dr. Chen smiled. Thank me by not dying. I hate losing patients. By 4 p.m., the walls were up. Daniel worked alongside the crew, his body aching but his spirit lighter than it had been in years. The antibiotics were already helping. His head felt clearer. His breathing came easier. Ghost worked beside him, teaching him the finer points of framing. You're a quick learner, Ghost observed. Had good teachers in the Army. Who trained you? Sergeant Williams. He was the best. Daniel paused hammer in mid-swing. He died in Ramadi, the day I got my Bronze Star. Ghost nodded slowly. I lost my whole squad in Nam. Ambush outside Hugh. I was the only one who made it out. How do you live with Thit? Ghost was quiet for a long moment. You don't live with it, you carry it. Every day, like a weight on your back that never goes away. He drove a nail into the wood with one powerful swing, but carrying weight makes you stronger. And eventually you learn to use that strength to help others. Is that why you're here? That's exactly why I'm here. Every veteran I help, every brother I save, it's like paying back a debt. A debt I'll never fully repay, but I keep trying anyway. Daniel understood. He understood completely. Keep hammering, soldier, Ghost said. The roof ain't gonna build itself. At 5:30, another vehicle arrived. This one was different. A black SUV with tinted windows. Too clean, too expensive. Daniel watched it pull up to the edge of the lot. The driver's door opened. A man in a suit stepped out. Daniel recognized him immediately. Henderson, from Henderson Manufacturing, the company that had rejected him that morning. Had it really only been that morning? It felt like a lifetime ago. Henderson looked around the construction site with wide eyes, took in the bikers, the trucks, the half-built house. Then he spotted Daniel. Mr. Foster. Daniel set down his hammer. Mr. Henderson, I saw the news about what you did. News, Tank appeared beside Daniel. CNN picked up the story 2 hours ago. Homeless veteran saves biker in blizzard. You're famous, brother. Henderson shifted uncomfortably. I wanted to, that is, I came to. Spit it out, Tank growled. Henderson flinched. I'd like to offer you a job, Mr. Foster. Floor supervisor, $52,000 a year, full benefits, starting immediately. The construction site went quiet. 50 men stopped working and turned to watch. Daniel looked at Henderson for a long moment. Remembered the receptionist's dismissive eyes. Remembered the door closing behind him. Remembered feeling invisible. You rejected me this morning, Daniel said calmly. That was a mistake, a serious mistake. I'd like to correct it. A mistake you only noticed after cameras got involved. Henderson's face reddened. I understand your frustration, but do you... Daniel stepped closer. Do you understand what it's like to give everything for your country and get nothing in return? Do you understand what it's like to beg for a job, any job, and get turned away because you don't look successful enough? I walked into your office this morning ready to work, ready to prove myself, and your receptionist looked at me like I was garbage. Henderson had no response. Axel stepped forward, arms crossed. The man asked you a question. I'm sorry, Henderson said quickly. I'm truly sorry. That's why I'm here, to make it right. Daniel looked at the man in the expensive suit, looked at the bikers who had dropped everything to help him, looked at the house that was rising from nothing. Thank you for the offer, Mr. Henderson, but I already have a job. Henderson blinked. You do, Bo. I'm working for the Hells Angels now. Daniel gestured at the construction crew. Turns out they value experience more than appearances. Tank grinned. Axel nodded slowly. Henderson stood there for a moment uncertain. Then he turned and walked back to his SUV. The engine started. The vehicle pulled away. 50 bikers burst into cheers. That's how you handle a suit, Tank roared. Go slap Daniel on the back. Proud of you, brother. Axel just smiled, a small, satisfied smile that said more than words ever could. Daniel picked up his hammer and got back to work. By 7 p.m., the roof frame was in place. Floodlights had been set up around the construction site. Generators hummed in the darkness. The work continued despite the cold. Daniel was helping Ghost secure a support beam when he heard Tank call out. Boss, we got company. Another car was pulling up to the lot. Not a fancy SUV this time. A battered Honda Civic with a dented fender. Daniel didn't recognize it. But when the driver's door opened and a woman stepped out, his heart stopped beating. Brown hair, brown eyes, the stubborn jaw she'd inherited from her mother. Emma, his daughter. Daniel dropped his hammer. Dad, she was 27 now. The last time he'd seen her, she was 20. Still in college. Still believing her father would get better. Before the drinking got worse. Before the nightmares drove him away. Before he disappeared into the streets because he couldn't bear to let her see what he'd become. Emma. His voice broke on her name. How did you... I saw you on the news. Her voice cracked too. You were on the news, Dad. Living in a shack. Saving someone's life. And I didn't even know where you were. I didn't want you to see me like this. Like what... She walked toward him, tears streaming down her face. Like a hero. Like the father who taught me to ride a bike. Like the man who came to every single one of my soccer games, even when he was working double shifts. I'm not that man anymore, Emma. You're exactly that man. You just forgot for a while. She crossed the last few feet between them and threw her arms around him. Daniel stood frozen for a moment. Then his arms came up slowly and wrapped around his daughter. He held her. For the first time in 6 years, he held his daughter. The tears came. He couldn't stop them. Didn't try. 6 years of shame. 6 years of hiding. 6 years of believing he wasn't worth loving. And Emma had come anyway. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry, just don't disappear again. I won't, I promise. They stood like that for a long time. The construction work had stopped. 50 bikers stood watching in respectful silence. Finally, Emma pulled back and looked at her father's face. You look terrible, she said. Daniel laughed, a real laugh, the first one in years. Thanks. I'm serious, when did you last eat? Today, actually, the guys have been feeding me. Emma looked around at the bikers, the half-built house, the massive construction effort. These are the Hells Angels. Yeah. And they're building you a house. Apparently, Emma shook her head in amazement. Only you, Dad. Only you could save a biker in a blizzard and end up with a house. Axel walked over, a warm smile on his weathered face. You must be Emma. How do you know my name? Your father talked about you, said you were the best thing he ever did. Emma looked at Daniel. You talked about me. Daniel nodded. All the time, to anyone who would listen. Fresh tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. Come on, Axel said gently. Let's get you both something warm to drink. We got a long night ahead. The temperature dropped to -15 by midnight, but inside the warming trailer that Tank had brought, it was almost comfortable. Daniel sat with Emma catching up on 6 years of lost time. She'd finished college, got a job as a social worker in Detroit. Ironic considering her father was one of the people she might have been trying to help. "I looked for you," she said. "After you left, I called every shelter in the city. I didn't want to be found." "Why?" Daniel stared at his coffee cup. "Because I was ashamed, because I couldn't stop drinking, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw Williams and Torres burning. Because I felt like a failure, and I didn't want you to see that." Emma reached over and took his hand. "You're not a failure, Dad. You never were. I left you. I left your mother. I threw everything away." Mom understood. She was angry, but she understood. Emma squeezed his hand. "PTSD isn't a choice. Addiction isn't a character flaw. You were sick, Dad. You needed help. And the country that sent you to war didn't give you any. That's not an excuse. No, it's an explanation. There's a difference into us." Daniel looked at his daughter, really looked at her. When had she grown up so much? When had she become so wise? "I'm sorry I missed it," he said quietly. "Your graduation, your first job, all of it. You're here now, that's what matters." "Is it enough?" Emma smiled. It was her mother's smile. "It's a start." Outside, the sound of hammers and saws continued. The Hells Angels worked through the night, rotating in shifts, taking breaks to warm up before heading back out. By 3 a.m., the roof was complete. By 6 a.m., the windows were installed. By 9 a.m., the plumbing was connected. Daniel had never seen anything like it. 50 men working in perfect coordination, building a house in less than 48 hours. "How is this possible?" he asked Ghost during a breakfast break. "When you got 50 motivated people who know what they're doing, you can accomplish anything." Ghost bit into a breakfast sandwich. "Plus, we've done this before." "You have? Oh, dozen times at least. Axel started the program 5 years ago. Any veteran we find on the streets, we bring them in, build them a house, get them back on their feet." "I didn't know." "Nobody knows. We don't do it for publicity. We do it because it's right." Ghost finished his sandwich and stood up. "Now come on, we got electrical to run." By 2 p.m., the house was nearly complete. Daniel stood in what would be his living room and tried to process what he was seeing. Real walls, real floors, a real ceiling, a kitchen with working appliances, a bathroom with hot water, 2 bedrooms, a living room with space for furniture. It was simple. It was modest. It was perfect. Emma stood beside him, her arm linked through his. "It's beautiful, Dad. It's a miracle." Axel walked in carrying a small black case. "Almost done, but we got one more thing to take care of." He handed the case to Daniel. Daniel opened it. Inside sat his bronze star, polished until it gleamed. The faded ribbon had been replaced with a new one, deep purple and pristine. "We found it when we were clearing out your old shack," Axel explained. "Preacher's wife does restoration work. She cleaned it up." Daniel stared at the metal. His hands were shaking. "I was going to pawn this." "I know. I almost sold it. But you didn't." Axel put a hand on his shoulder. "You held on to it because deep down you knew it mattered. You knew you mattered." Daniel couldn't speak. "That metal doesn't belong in a pawn shop," Axel continued. "It belongs above your fireplace, in your house, where you can see it every day and remember who you really are." Tank walked in carrying a brass plaque. "We made this too." He handed it to Daniel. The inscription read, "The Foster House, built by brothers who never leave a soldier behind." December 2024. Daniel's vision blurred with tears. He managed. "Why would you do all this for a stranger?" Axel smiled. "Because you weren't a stranger the moment you stepped into that blizzard to save me. You were a brother, and brothers take care of each other." He turned to address the 50 bikers who had gathered in the living room. "All right, listen up. In about 10 minutes, we're going to have a dedication ceremony for Daniel Foster's new home. But before we do that, I got something to say." The room went silent. 2 days ago, I was dying in a snowbank. Hypothermia, concussion, 20 minutes from being a frozen corpse. Axel's voice was steady but emotional. "This man dragged me through a blizzard when he could barely stand. This man gave me his last food when he hadn't eaten in 4 days. This man saved my life at the risk of his own. He turned to Daniel. That's not just bravery. That's not just kindness. That's the kind of character you can't fake. That's the kind of man I want standing beside me. Axel reached into his jacket and pulled out something Daniel had never expected to see. A leather vest, with the Hells Angels patch on the back. Daniel Foster, I'd like to officially invite you to join the Detroit chapter of the Hells Angels as a full member. The room erupted in cheers. Daniel stared at the vest. You don't have to answer now. Think about it. But I want you to know that the offer stands. You're one of us, whether you wear the patch or not. Daniel took the vest with trembling hands. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. I'll think about it. Axel grinned. Good enough for me. The dedication ceremony was simple. 50 Hells Angels stood in a circle around Daniel's new front porch. Emma stood beside her father holding his hand. Dr. Chen was there. Even some neighbors had wandered over curious about the commotion. Axel mounted the brass plaque beside the front door. The Foster House, he read aloud, built by brothers who never leave a soldier behind. He turned to Daniel. Brother, this house is yours, free and clear. No mortgage, no rent, no strings attached. This is your home now, forever. He pressed a key into Daniel's palm. Welcome home, soldier. Daniel looked at the key, looked at the house, looked at his daughter, looked at the 50 men who had given him his life back. 3 days ago, he was dying in a shack, alone, forgotten, ready to give up. Now he had a home, a family, a future. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you all. Don't thank us yet, Tank called out. We still gotta furnish the place. Laughter rippled through the crowd. I mean it, Daniel continued. I spent 7 years believing I was worthless, believing I didn't deserve help, believing I was better off dead. He paused, steadying himself. You proved me wrong. Every single one of you proved me wrong. Ghost stepped forward. We didn't prove nothing, brother. We just reminded you of what you already knew, that you matter, that your life has value, that you still got something to give. Daniel nodded slowly. Then I got a lot of giving to do. That's the spirit, Axel said. And as it happens, we got work that needs doing. What kind of work? Axel smiled. The kind where we find every homeless veteran in Detroit and do for them what we just did for you. Daniel felt something shift inside him. Something that had been broken for 7 years suddenly clicked back into place. Purpose. He finally had a purpose again. When do we start? Tomorrow morning, 0600. That work for you, soldier. Daniel straightened up, shoulders back, chin high, the way he used to stand before everything fell apart. 0600 works just fine. Axel extended his hand. Daniel shook it. Welcome to the family, brother. That night, Daniel slept in a real bed for the first time in 3 years. Emma had insisted on staying over. She was asleep in the second bedroom, safe and warm under blankets that didn't have holes in them. Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his new home. His bronze star hung above the fireplace. The brass plaque was mounted beside his front door. The key to his house sat on his nightstand. It was real. All of it. Real. He thought about Williams and Torres, about the burning Humvee, about all the years he'd spent running from the guilt. I'm going to make it count, he whispered to the darkness. Everything you gave, everything I couldn't save. I'm going to make it count. Somewhere outside, a motorcycle engine rumbled. The Hells Angels were still out there, watching, protecting, family. Daniel closed his eyes and slept. And for the first time in 7 years, the nightmares didn't come. Daniel woke at 0530. Old habits die hard. 20 years in the Army had programmed his body to rise before dawn, and 3 years on the streets hadn't changed that. But this morning was different. This morning he woke up in a bed, a real bed, with clean sheets and a warm blanket and a roof that didn't leak. He lay there for a moment listening to the silence. No wind howling through cracks, no rats scratching in the walls, no distant sirens reminding him how far he had fallen. Just peace. You okay, Dad? Emma's voice came from the doorway. She was already dressed, holding 2 cups of coffee. I'm okay. Daniel sat up slowly. I'm actually okay. First night in a real bed in 3 years. How did it feel? Like I didn't deserve it. Emma walked over and handed him a cup. You're going to have to stop saying that. Saying what? That you don't deserve things. Good things happen to you because you're a good person, Dad. Start believing it. Daniel sipped his coffee. It was hot and strong and perfect. I'll work on it. Good. Now get dressed. Axel called. They're meeting at the warehouse at 6. Daniel was out of bed before she finished the sentence. The warehouse sat on the edge of the old industrial district. Tank was waiting outside when Daniel arrived. The massive biker grinned when he saw him. Look at you. Clean clothes, shaved face, almost look human. Thanks, I think. Come on, Axel's already inside. The warehouse had been converted into a command center. Maps covered one wall, photographs covered another. A large table dominated the center of the room, covered with files and documents. Axel stood at the head of the table, surrounded by a dozen Hell's Angels. Daniel, right on time. He gestured to an empty chair. Sit, we got work to do. Daniel sat. What is all this? This is Operation Homefront. Axel pointed at the maps. Every red pin represents a location where we've confirmed homeless veterans are living. Bridges, underpasses, abandoned buildings, tent camps. Daniel counted the pins. There had to be over 100. How many veterans are we talking about? In Detroit alone, roughly 300 confirmed, probably another 200 we don't know about yet. 500 homeless veterans in one city. Welcome to America, brother. Ghost stepped forward. We've been tracking these locations for 2 years, building files on as many individuals as we can. Names, service records, medical conditions, family situations. Why haven't you helped them before now? Resources, Axel said simply. Building a house takes money, takes materials, takes manpower. We've been doing what we can, 1 or 2 veterans a year, but that's not enough. What changed? Axel smiled. You did. Daniel didn't understand. The CNN story went viral, Tank explained. 5 million views in 24 hours. Donations started pouring in. We've raised over $200,000 since yesterday. 200,000 and counting. Plus 3 construction companies have offered to donate materials. 2 more have offered free labor. Tank shook his head in amazement. You saving Axel's life didn't just change your life, brother. It changed everything. Daniel sat back in his chair, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. Say you're ready to work. Axel pushed a file across the table. Because we're starting today. Daniel opened the file. A photograph stared back at him. An old man with hollow eyes and a gray beard. Thin, weathered, the look of someone who had given up. Robert Jackson, Axel said. Army, 2 tours in Vietnam, Purple Heart, Bronze Star. Been living under the Michigan Avenue overpass for 3 years. What's his story? Lost his wife to cancer in 2015, lost his house to medical bills in 2018, lost his will to live somewhere in between. Daniel studied the photograph. He recognized that look. He'd seen it in his own mirror for 7 years. Where is he now? Same place he's been for 3 years, under the overpass, waiting to die. Daniel closed the file and stowed it up. Then let's go get him. The drive to Michigan Avenue took 20 minutes. Daniel rode in the passenger seat of Tank's truck. Ghost and Preacher followed in a van loaded with supplies. You nervous? Tank asked. Should I be? Some of these guys don't want help. They've been burned too many times. Promised things that never came. After a while, they stop believing anyone actually cares. I was one of those guys 3 days ago. Exactly. That's why you're here. Tank glanced at him. You speak their language, brother. You know what it's like. That matters more than anything we can say. They pulled up to the overpass and parked. Daniel stepped out of the truck and looked around. Concrete pillars, scattered debris, the smell of exhaust and neglect. And there against the far pillar, a shape huddled under a pile of blankets. Robert Jackson. Daniel walked toward him slowly. Non-threatening, the way you approach a wounded animal. Mr. Jackson. The shape didn't move. Mr. Jackson, my name is Daniel Foster. I'm a veteran too. Iraq. 2 tours. Still nothing. Daniel crouched down a few feet away. I know you don't know me. I know you've probably heard a lot of promises from a lot of people who didn't follow through. I get it. I've been where you are. A voice came from under the blankets. Rough, tired, angry. Then you know I want to be left alone. I do know that. I wanted to be left alone too. I thought I was better off dying than asking for help. Silence. 3 days ago, I was living in a shack made of plywood and plastic. Hadn't eaten in 4 days. Coughing blood. Ready to give up. Daniel paused. Then someone helped me. Not because I asked. Not because I deserved it. Just because they could. The blankets shifted. A face appeared. Old. Weathered. Suspicious. Who helped you? The Hells Angels. Robert's eyebrows rose. The motorcycle gang. The motorcycle family. Daniel gestured toward the truck where Tank and the others waited. They built me a house in 2 days, gave me food, medicine, a reason to keep going. Why would they do that? Because I saved one of their members in a blizzard, and because they believed that veterans shouldn't be forgotten. Robert studied Daniel's face for a long moment. You're not lying. No, sir, I'm not. You really lived on the streets. 3 years, right up until 2 days ago. Robert was quiet, processing. What do you want from me? I want to help you, the same way someone helped me. Help how? Hot meal, warm bed, medical care if you need it, and if you want a bomb and a place to live. Robert laughed bitterly. Just like that, you're going to give me a house. Not give, build. The same crew that built my house will build yours. We're starting a program. Every homeless veteran in Detroit is going to have a home. You can be the first. Robert's eyes glistened. Nobody's offered me anything in 5 years. Not a bomb, not a meal, not even a kind word. His voice cracked. Why now? Why me? Daniel reached out and put a hand on the old man's shoulder. Because you served your country and your country forgot about you. That ends today. Robert broke. The tears came hard and fast. 67 years old, Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart recipient, sobbing like a child under a bridge. Daniel didn't say anything. He just sat there, hand on Robert's shoulder, letting the old man cry. Some things don't need words. An hour later, Robert Jackson sat in the warm cab of Tank's truck, wrapped in a clean blanket, eating a hot sandwich. Where are we going? He asked between bites. My house, Daniel said. You'll stay there until we get yours built. Your house, the one the angels built for me. It's got 2 bedrooms, plenty of room. Robert shook his head slowly. I don't understand any of this. You don't have to understand it. You just have to accept it. But why? Why would you do this for a stranger? Daniel thought about the question. Thought about Axel lying in the snow. Thought about his last can of beans. Thought about all the choices that had led him to this moment. Because 3 days ago, someone did it for me. And I made a promise that I would pay it forward. He looked at Robert. Every veteran we help, every life we save, it's like paying back a debt I'll never fully repay. But I'm going to keep trying anyway. Robert was quiet for a moment. You sound like someone I used to know. Who? My sergeant. Back in Nam, he used to say the same thing, that we're all responsible for each other, that no soldier gets left behind. Smart man. He was. Robert's voice grew heavy. He died saving my life, threw himself on a grenade, took the blast so I could live. Daniel felt his chest tighten. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be worthy. Robert looked at him with watery eyes. That's what he told me before he died. Don't be sorry, be worthy. I spent 50 years wondering what that meant. I think I'm finally starting to understand. Back at the warehouse, Axel was waiting. How did it go? Got him. Daniel helped Robert out of the truck. This is Robert Jackson. Vietnam, Purple Heart. Axel extended his hand. Welcome to the family, brother. Robert shook it hesitantly. I still don't understand what's happening. You will. Come on inside. We got food, coffee, and a warm place to sit. Dr. Chen's going to check you out, make sure you are healthy. Then we'll talk about next steps. They walked Robert inside. Dr. Chen was waiting with her medical bag. Another one already, she smiled at Daniel. You work fast. No point in waiting. Dr. Chen led Robert to a makeshift examination area. Daniel watched them go, then turned to Axel. When can we start on his house? Already started. Tank's got a crew breaking ground on lot 7. Should have the foundation poured by tomorrow. That fast? That fast. Axel put a hand on Daniel's shoulder. You did good today, brother. Real good. It doesn't feel like enough. It never will. That's what keeps us going. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of construction and rescue missions. Daniel led 12 recovery operations, 12 veterans pulled from the streets, 12 men who had been forgotten by the world. Marcus Thompson, Army sniper, lost his leg in Iraq, lost his family to divorce, lost his hope to PTSD. Daniel found him living in a drainage tunnel, convinced that nobody would ever care. William O'Brien, Marine Corps, 3 tours in Afghanistan, traumatic brain injury from an IED blast. Couldn't hold it, couldn't remember his own children's names some days. Daniel found him wandering the streets in a daze, talking to ghosts only he could see. James Chen, Navy, Gulf War, Agent Orange exposure, cancer that the VA refused to acknowledge. Daniel found him in a hospice waiting to die with no family left to mourn him. One by one, Daniel brought them in. One by one, the Hells Angels built them homes. The media took notice. CNN came back for a follow-up story. ABC sent a crew. The New York Times published a feature article. The Washington Post ran an editorial calling the Hells Angels unlikely heroes. Donations poured in, 500,000, then 1 million, then 2 million. Politicians started paying attention. The mayor of Detroit requested a meeting with Axel and Daniel. The governor mentioned the program in a press conference. A senator from Michigan proposed a bill to fund similar efforts nationwide. Daniel couldn't believe any of it. This is insane, he told Emma one night over dinner. 3 weeks ago, I was dying in a shack. Now I'm meeting with senators. You changed people's lives, Dad. That matters. I didn't do anything special. I just pulled a guy out of a snowbank. And then you built a movement. Emma reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Don't diminish what you've accomplished. You gave people hope. That's worth more than anything. The phone rang. Daniel answered it. Daniel, it's Axel. We got a problem. What kind of problem? Channel 7 just ran a story. Some city council members are calling us a gang, saying we're using the veteran program as a cover for criminal activity. Daniel's blood went cold. That's a lie. Of course it's a lie, but it doesn't matter. People believe what they see on TV. We're getting calls from donors wanting their money back. 2 construction companies just pulled out. What do? We fight back, but I need you for this, Daniel. You're the face of this program now. People trust you. If you speak up, they'll listen. When press conference tomorrow, City Hall, 10 a.m. Daniel took a deep breath. I'll be there. The press conference was a circus. Cameras everywhere. Reporters shouting questions. Protesters on both sides, some supporting the program, some calling for the Hells Angels to be shut down. Daniel stood at the podium, his heart pounding. He'd faced enemy fire in Iraq. He'd watched friends die in his arms. But somehow this was scarier. Mr. Foster, is it true the Hells Angels have criminal records? Oh, Mr. Foster, are you being paid by the motorcycle gang? Mr. Foster, how do you respond to allegations that this is all a publicity stunt? Daniel gripped the podium and waited for the noise to die down. I'm going to tell you a story, he said finally. 4 weeks ago, I was living in a shack made of plywood and plastic. I hadn't eaten in 4 days. I was coughing blood. I had given up on life. The crowd went quiet. Then a man crashed his motorcycle near my shelter during the worst blizzard Detroit had seen in 20 years. He was dying. Hypothermia. I could have stayed inside. I could have let him freeze. Nobody would have known. Daniel paused. But I didn't. I dragged him through the snow. I gave him my last food. I kept him alive with my own body heat until the storm passed. He looked directly into the cameras. That man was Axel Stone, president of the Detroit Hells Angels. And when he woke up the next morning, you know what he did? He called 50 of his brothers, and they built me a house in 2 days. They gave me food, medicine, a reason to live. Daniel felt the emotion rising in his chest. He didn't fight it. You want to know who the Hells Angels really are? They're veterans. Half of them served this country in Vietnam, in Desert Storm, in Iraq and Afghanistan. They came home to nothing. They built something out of that nothing. And now they're helping other veterans do the same. He pointed to the crowd. You want to talk about criminal records? Let me tell you something. I've met 12 veterans in the last 3 weeks who were living on the streets. Every single one of them served with honor. Every single one of them came home broken. And every single one of them was forgotten by the country they fought for. His voice broke. The real crime isn't that the Hells Angels have records. The real crime is that we let veterans sleep under bridges while politicians argue about budgets. The real crime is that men who risk their lives for this country are dying alone in the cold. Daniel took a breath. You want to shut down this program? Go ahead, but you're going to have to go through me first, because I'm not going to stop. Not until every veteran in this city has a roof over their head. Not until every soldier who served knows that somebody still cares. He stepped back from the podium. The crowd erupted. Some people were cheering, some were crying. A few protesters were still shouting, but their voices were drowned out by the applause. Axel appeared beside him. That was one hell of a speech, brother. I meant every word. I know you did. That's what made it powerful. A reporter pushed through the crowd. Mr. Foster, says Mr. Foster. How many veterans has the program helped so far? 12, Daniel said. 12 veterans with homes, 12 more in progress. And how many do you plan to help? Daniel looked at Axel, then at Tank Ghost Preacher and Razor standing behind him, then at Emma watching from the edge of the crowd with tears in her eyes. All of them, he said. Every single one. The press conference changed everything. The city council backed down. The critical news stories disappeared. Donations doubled overnight. More importantly, volunteers started showing up. Not just bikers, regular people. Doctors, lawyers, construction workers, teachers. People who had seen Daniel's speech and wanted to help. We got 100 new volunteers this week, Tank reported at the next meeting, including a team of architects who want to design better housing. And 3 churches have offered to provide meals, Ghost added. Plus a job training center downtown wants to partner with us. Daniel shook his head in amazement. This is bigger than I ever imagined. It's bigger than any of us imagined, Axel said. But that's the point. One act of kindness creates ripples. Those ripples become waves. Those waves become movements. He looked around the room at the expanded team. What started as one man saving another in a blizzard has become something that could change the whole country. And it's only just beginning. Daniel's phone buzzed, a text from Emma Turn on Channel 4. Now he walked to the TV in the corner and switched it on. A news anchor was speaking. Breaking news tonight. The White House has announced that President Mitchell will be visiting Detroit next week to tour the veteran housing program founded by former homeless veteran Daniel Foster in the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. The visit is being seen as an endorsement of the grassroots effort that has captured the nation's attention. Daniel stared at the screen. The president, he whispered. The president is coming here. Tank laughed. Brother, you went from living in a shack into meeting the president in 1 month. That's got to be some kind of record. But Daniel wasn't laughing. He was thinking about Williams and Torres, about the burning Humvee, about all the men he couldn't save. And he was thinking about what he could do now, what he could build, how many lives he could change. This isn't about me, he said quietly. This was never about me. Then what's it about? Axel asked. Daniel turned to face his brothers, his family. It's about proving that nobody gets left behind. Not anymore. Not ever again. Outside, the sun was setting over Detroit, and somewhere across the city, another veteran was sleeping under a bridge. Cold, hungry, forgotten. But not for long. Daniel Foster was coming for them, all of them. The week before the president's visit was chaos. Secret Service agents swarmed the neighborhood. They checked every house, every vehicle, every person within a 3-block radius. They interviewed Daniel 6 times. They interviewed Axel 8 times. They ran background checks on every single Hells Angel in the program. This is insane, Tank muttered during one of the security briefings. I've been strip searched twice. Welcome to the big leagues, Ghost replied. When the president comes to town, nothing is off limits. Daniel barely slept. There were press interviews every day, conference calls with White House staff, logistics meetings that stretched late into the night. Emma tried to get him to slow down. Dad, you need to rest. You just recovered from pneumonia. I'll rest when this is over. You'll collapse before this is over. Then I'll collapse. Daniel looked at her with tired eyes. This is bigger than me, Emma. This is our chance to change things on a national level. I can't afford to slow down now. Emma sighed. You're just as stubborn as you were when I was a kid. Some things never change. The morning of the president's visit dawned cold and clear. Daniel stood in front of his house wearing the only tee he owned. Emma had bought it for him 2 days ago. It still felt strange on his body, too formal, too clean. You look good, brother. Axel appeared beside him, also in a suit. The leather-clad biker looked almost unrecognizable. Almost respectable. I feel like a fraud. You're not a fraud. You're a veteran who changed the world. Own it. The motorcade arrived at exactly 10 a.m. Black SUVs, police escorts, the unmistakable limousine with the presidential seal. Daniel's heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his throat. The limousine door opened. President William Mitchell stepped out. He was shorter than Daniel expected. Gray hair, kind eyes, the weight of the world visible in the lines on his face. Mr. Foster. The president extended his hand. It's an honor to meet you. Daniel shook it, trying to keep his hand from trembling. The honor is mine, Mr. President. I've heard a lot about what you've accomplished here. I wanted to see it for myself. President Mitchell looked around at the houses, the construction crews, the veterans standing proudly outside their new homes. This is remarkable. It's not just me, sir. It's a team effort. That's what makes it special. The president smiled. Show me around. Daniel led the tour. They walked through the neighborhood, stopping at each house. Daniel introduced the president to Robert Jackson, to Marcus Thompson, to William O'Brien. Each veteran stood at attention when the president approached. Old habits from military service never forgotten. You served in Vietnam, President Mitchell asked Robert. Yes, sir. 2 tours, 1968 and 1969. Thank you for your service. Robert's eyes glistened. Nobody's said that to me in 50 years, sir. Then I'm 50 years too late. I apologize on behalf of a nation that should have done better. Robert couldn't speak. He just nodded, tears running down his weathered face. At each stop, the same scene repeated. Veterans who had been forgotten finally being seen, finally being acknowledged, finally being thanked. Daniel watched the president work, watched him listen, watched him care. This wasn't a photo op. This was real. The tour ended at Daniel's house. President Mitchell stood in the living room looking at the bronze star mounted above the fireplace. Ramadito, he asked. Yes, sir, 2007. I read your file. You saved 2 men from a burning vehicle under enemy fire. I tried to save them, sir. They didn't make it. The president nodded slowly. The ones who don't make it stay with us forever. I know something about that. Sir, my brother served in Vietnam, didn't come home. President Mitchell's voice was quiet. I was 15 years old. I've spent my entire political career trying to make sure we take better care of the men and women who serve. I haven't always succeeded. You're here now, sir. That counts for something. The president turned to face Daniel directly. I want to do more than visit. I want to help. Help how? I'm going to propose a bill to Congress. Federal funding for veteran housing programs modeled on what you've built here. If it passes, we could help tens of thousands of veterans across the country. Daniel felt his breath catch. Tens of thousands. At least, maybe more. The president put a hand on Daniel's shoulder. What do you started here, Daniel? It's not going to stay in Detroit. It's going to spread across the nation. And I'm going to make sure it has the resources it needs. Daniel didn't know what to say. 1 month ago, he was ready to die in a shack. Now the President of the United States was promising to take his program national. Thank you, sir, he managed finally. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You did the hard part. President Mitchell smiled. I'm just the guy with the pen. The press conference that followed was the biggest event Detroit had seen in years. Hundreds of reporters, cameras from every major network, live coverage on CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and all the broadcast channels. President Mitchell stood at the podium with Daniel and Axel on either side. Today I am announcing the Veterans Home Initiative, the president said, a federal program that will provide funding for community-based housing projects for homeless veterans across America. This program is modeled on the remarkable work being done right here in Detroit by Daniel Foster, Axel Stone, and the incredible team they've assembled. The crowd applauded. Daniel Foster was a decorated veteran who served 2 tours in Iraq. He came home with injuries both visible and invisible. Like too many of our veterans, he fell through the cracks. He ended up homeless, living in a makeshift shelter, forgotten by the country he served. President Mitchell paused. But Daniel Foster didn't give up. And when he had the chance to save another person's life, he didn't hesitate. He risked everything he had left to help a stranger in need. That act of selfless courage sparked a movement that has already housed dozens of veterans and is growing every day. He turned to look at Daniel. This is what America is supposed to be about. Taking care of each other, lifting each other up, never leaving anyone behind. The applause was thunderous. Daniel stood there overwhelmed as the cameras flashed and the crowd cheered. This wasn't about him anymore. This was about something much bigger. This was about every veteran who had ever been forgotten. And finally, someone was listening. The weeks after the president's visit were a whirlwind. The Veterans Home Initiative passed Congress with bipartisan support. $50 million in federal funding was allocated for the first year, with more promised in subsequent years. Applications flooded in from cities across the country: Chicago, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, New York, Miami. Organizations everywhere wanted to replicate what Daniel and the Hells Angels had built. Daniel found himself traveling constantly, giving speeches, training volunteers, consulting with city officials. He was on planes more than he was on the ground. "You're running yourself ragged," Emma told him during one of his rare nights at home. "There's too much to do. There's always going to be too much to do. That doesn't mean you have to do it all yourself. Who else is going to do it? The team you built. Dad, you have hundreds of volunteers now, dozens of staff members. You don't have to carry everything alone anymore." Daniel knew she was right, but old habits died hard. He'd spent 7 years alone. Trusting people was still difficult. "I'll try to delegate more. Promise, promise." But even as he said it, his phone was buzzing with another urgent request. Another city that needed help. Another veteran who needed saving. The work never stopped, and Daniel wouldn't have had it any other way. 3 months after the president's visit, Daniel got a call that stopped him in his tracks. "Mr. Foster, this is Sergeant Major Williams, United States Army." Daniel's blood went cold. Williams, the same name as the sergeant he'd lost in Ramadi. "What can I do for you, Sergeant Major?" "I'm calling about your service records, sir, specifically about what happened in Ramadi in 2007. Daniel's hand tightened on the phone. "What about it?" "Sir, a review board has been examining your case. Based on new evidence and testimony from surviving members of your unit, we believe your actions that day warrant additional recognition." "Additional recognition?" "Yes, sir. The Army is upgrading your Bronze Star to a Silver Star. There will be a ceremony at the Pentagon next month. The Secretary of the Army will present the medal personally." Daniel couldn't speak. "Sir, are you still there?" "I'm here." His voice was barely a whisper. "I don't understand. I failed that day. Williams and Torres died." "Sir, with respect, that's not how anyone else sees it. You ran into a burning vehicle under enemy fire. You pulled Sergeant Williams to safety. You went back for Private Torres when the second explosion hit. You were wounded in the blast that killed him. But they died, and you nearly died trying to save them. That's not failure, sir. That's heroism." Daniel felt tears burning in his eyes. "I've spent 17 years believing I failed them." "You didn't fail them, sir. You honored them. And now the Army wants to honor you." The line was quiet for a moment. "Will you accept the medal, sir?" Daniel thought about Williams, about Torres, about all the years of guilt and shame and self-hatred. "Yes," he said finally. "I'll accept it for them." The ceremony at the Pentagon was surreal. Daniel stood in a room full of generals and dignitaries wearing his dress uniform for the first time in over a decade. Emma stood beside him, tears streaming down her face. Axel Tank Ghost and A dozen other Hell's Angels were there in suits looking as uncomfortable as Daniel had ever seen them. The Secretary of the Army read the citation aloud. For gallantry in action against an enemy of the United States while serving as a convoy leader in Ramadi, Iraq. On March 15, 2007, Sergeant Foster's convoy was struck by an improvised explosive device, resulting in a vehicle fire that trapped 2 soldiers. With complete disregard for his own safety, Sergeant Foster ran through enemy fire to rescue his fellow soldiers. He successfully extracted 1 soldier before returning to the burning vehicle for a second soldier. Sergeant Foster was wounded in a secondary explosion that killed Private First Class Torres. His actions reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. The Secretary pinned the silver star to Daniel's chest. On behalf of a grateful nation, thank you for your service and sacrifice. Daniel saluted. The room erupted in applause. Afterwards, a young soldier approached him. Mr. Foster, I'm Lieutenant Sarah Torres. Daniel's heart stopped. Torres. Private First Class Michael Torres was my father. Daniel couldn't breathe. The room seemed to spin around him. I was 3 years old when he died, Lieutenant Torres continued. My mother told me stories about him, but I never knew the details of what happened that day. Not until I joined the Army and was able to read the full report. I'm sorry. Daniel's voice cracked. I'm so sorry I couldn't save him. That's not why I'm here, sir. Lieutenant Torres's eyes were bright with tears. I'm here to thank you. Thank me. You went back for him. When everyone else was running for cover, you went back. You risked your life to try to save my father. She took his hand. For 20 years, I wondered if anyone cared about him, if anyone tried. Now I know someone did. Daniel felt the tears finally fall. He was a good man. He talked about you all the time, about your mother, about the baby that was coming. That baby was me. I know. Daniel squeezed her hand. He would be so proud of you, so proud. Lieutenant Torres hugged him. For a long moment, they stood there, 2 strangers connected by a tragedy that had happened before she was old enough to remember. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for trying to bring my father home. Daniel held her tighter. I'm sorry I couldn't. You did everything you could. That's all anyone can ask. She pulled back and looked at him. My father didn't die alone. He died in knowing someone was coming for him, and that matters. That matters more than you know. The flight back to Detroit was quiet. Emma sat beside Daniel, holding his hand. She hadn't let go since they left the Pentagon. How do you feel? She asked softly. I don't know. 17 years of guilt, 17 years of believing I failed. And now I don't know what to believe. Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. And believe that you did your best. Believe that you honored your brothers. Believe that their sacrifice meant something. Does any of it mean something? Look at what you've built, Dad. Look at how many lives you've changed. Williams and Torres, they're part of that. Their memory is part of that. Everything you've done since that day has been in their honor, even if you didn't realize it. Daniel stared out the window at the clouds below. I used to think the Bronze Star was a reminder of my failure. That's why I almost pawned it. And now I think it's a reminder of what matters, of who I'm supposed to be. He looked at the silver star on his chest. Torres's daughter thanked me for trying, for not leaving her father alone. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Try, and never leave anyone behind. Emma squeezed his hand. That's exactly what you've been doing, every day, with every veteran you help. It doesn't feel like enough. It never will. That's what keeps you going. Daniel smiled slightly. You sound like Axel. Maybe Axel's smarter than he looks. Don't tell him that. His ego's big enough already. They both laughed. For the first time in 17 years, Daniel felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Peace. Back in Detroit, the work continued. But something had changed in Daniel. The guilt that had driven him for so long had transformed into something else. Something healthier. Purpose without pain. Dedication without self-destruction. He still worked long hours. Still traveled constantly. Still pushed himself harder than anyone around him. But now he did it with joy instead of penance. You seem different, Axel observed one morning at the warehouse. Different, how lighter, like you finally put down something you've been carrying for a long time. Daniel nodded slowly. I met Torres's daughter at the Pentagon. I heard. She thanked me for trying to save her father, for not leaving him alone. Axel was quiet for a moment. Did it help? Yeah. Daniel's voice was thick. Yeah, it did. I spent 17 years hating myself for failing, but she didn't see it as failure. She saw it as love, as loyalty, as doing everything I could for someone who mattered. Because that's what it was. I know that now. I didn't know it before. Axel put a hand on his shoulder. Brother, you saved my life in a blizzard when you had nothing left. You gave me your last food when you were starving. You risked everything for a stranger. He looked Daniel in the eyes. That's not the behavior of someone who leaves people behind. That's the behavior of someone who would die before giving up on another human being. Daniel felt his throat tighten. Thank you, Axel, for everything. Don't thank me. We're family. Family takes care of each other. Tank burst through the door, interrupting the moment. Boss, we got a problem. Axel turned. What kind of problem? Big one. Chicago chapter just called. They found a veteran camp under one of the bridges. 40 people, maybe more. City's planning to clear it out tomorrow. They want our help. 40 veterans. At least, winter's coming. If they get displaced, some of them won't survive. Daniel felt the old fire ignite in his chest. When do we leave? Tank grinned. Trucks are already loading. We roll in 2 hours. Daniel looked at Axel. You coming? Wouldn't miss it. Axel grabbed his jacket. Let's go save some lives. 2 hours later, a convoy of 12 vehicles headed west on I-94. Daniel rode in the lead truck with Axel and Tank. Behind them, a fleet of vans and trucks carried supplies, volunteers and building materials. 40 veterans, Daniel said, staring at the road ahead. In one camp. How does that happen? Same way it always happens, Axel replied. System fails them. Family gives up on them. They find each other because nobody else will take them in. We're going to change that. Damn right we are. The drive to Chicago took 4 hours. They arrived at the bridge just as the sun was setting. The camp was bigger than Daniel expected. Tents and makeshift shelters stretching along the concrete supports. Cooking fires sending smoke into the evening sky. The smell of desperation and survival. A crowd gathered as the convoy pulled up. Suspicious faces, defensive postures. These were people who had learned not to trust anyone. Daniel stepped out of the truck first. Who's in charge here? He called out. A man stepped forward, tall, thin, gray beard, military bearing despite the ragged clothes. I am. Name's Colonel Frank Morrison, retired. Who's asking? Daniel Foster. Army, 2 tours in Iraq. Morrison's eyes narrowed. I know that name. You're the one from Detroit, the one who's been all over the news. That's me. What do you want, Tatiana? I want to help. City's planning to clear this camp tomorrow. We're here to offer an alternative. What kind of alternative? Housing, jobs, medical care, a fresh start. Morrison laughed bitterly. I've heard that before. From the VA, from politicians, from do-gooders who show up with cameras and disappear when the lights turn off. I'm not any of those people, Meshawahim. Then who are you? Daniel stepped closer. I'm a veteran who lived on the streets for 3 years. I know what it's like to be hungry, to be cold, to be forgotten. I know what it's like to give up hope. He looked around at the faces watching them. I also know what it's like to be given a second chance. Someone saved my life when I had nothing left. Now I'm trying to do the same for others. Morrison studied him for a long moment. You're serious. Dead serious. And these people, Morrison gestured at the bikers unloading supplies from the trucks. Hell's Angels. Half of them are veterans. All of them are committed to this mission. Morrison's eyebrows rose. Hell's Angels building houses for homeless veterans. Now I've heard everything. Believe it or not, it's working. We've housed over 100 veterans in Detroit. We're expanding to cities across the country. And tonight we're starting in Chicago. Morrison was quiet, processing. What do you need from us? Nothing. We're not here to take. We're here to give. Daniel pointed at the trucks. We've got food, blankets, medical supplies. Enough to get everyone through the night. Tomorrow we start talking about permanent solutions. In the city, they're still coming to clear us out. Leave the city to us. We've got lawyers. We've got media contacts. We've got the attention of some very powerful people. Daniel met Morrison's eyes. Nobody's getting displaced, not on my watch. Morrison stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly he extended his hand. Welcome to Chicago, Daniel Foster. Daniel shook it. Let's get to work. The night was long and cold, but for the first time in years, the veterans under that bridge had hope. Daniel moved through the camp, talking to each person, learning their stories. Every face had a history. Every pair of eyes had seen things that would haunt them forever. But there was something else in those eyes now, a flicker of belief, a spark of possibility. Daniel fanned those sparks all night long, because he knew better than anyone that sometimes a single spark is all it takes to light a fire that changes the world. And this fire was just getting started. The blizzard hit Detroit on December 15th. 1 year to the day since Daniel Foster had dragged Axel Stone out of a snowbank and changed both their lives forever. Daniel stood at the window of the Veterans Home Initiative headquarters, watching the snow pile up on the streets. The building had once been an abandoned factory. Now it housed the administrative offices for a program that had spread to 37 cities across America. His phone buzzed. Daniel, it's Tank. We got one. We're in Lincoln Park underpass. Female veteran, mid-30s, Army medic. She's in bad shape. Daniel grabbed his jacket and I'm on my way. Some things never changed. No matter how big the organization grew, Daniel still went out personally for rescues. He couldn't help it. Every veteran on the streets was him. Every frozen body was a reminder of how close he'd come. The drive through the blizzard brought back memories. 1 year ago, he had been dying in a shack. Fever burning, lungs failing, ready to give up. 1 year ago, a stranger had crashed outside his door. 1 year ago, everything had changed. Tank was waiting at the underpass when Daniel arrived. Over here, boss. They found her huddled against a concrete pillar. Young, too young, dark hair matted with ice. Skin pale from cold and malnutrition. Daniel knelt beside his. Hey, can you hear me? Her eyes open, brown, hollow, the look of someone who had stopped hoping. Who are you, Bussy? My name is Daniel Foster. I'm a veteran too, Iraq, 2 tours. Good for you. What's your name? She was silent for a moment. Jessica Martinez. Daniel's breath caught. Martinez, the same name as the sergeant he'd lost in Ramadi. Jessica, I'm here to help you. I don't need help. I said the same thing once. Turned out I was wrong. She looked at him with those empty eyes. You don't know anything about me. I know you're freezing. I know you're hungry. I know you're a veteran who served her country and got forgotten. Daniel's voice was gentle but firm. I know because I've been exactly where you are. Doubt it. 1 year ago today, I was living in a shack made of plywood. Hadn't eaten in 4 days. Coughing blood. Ready to die. He paused. Someone saved me. Not because I asked, not because I deserved it. Because they could. Jessica stared at him. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know that I understand. And because I want you to give me a chance to help you the way someone helped me. And if I say no, then I'll come back tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Daniel met her eyes. I'm not gonna let you die out here, Jessica. Not on my watch. Something flickered in her expression. A crack in the armor. You're serious. Dead serious. She was quiet for a long moment. The snow fell around them. The wind howled. Then slowly she reached out her hand. Daniel took it. Let's get you somewhere warm. An hour later, Jessica Martinez sat in the headquarters building wrapped in blankets, holding a cup of hot coffee. Dr. Chen had already examined her, frostbite on 3 fingers, malnutrition, pneumonia starting in her left lung, nothing that couldn't be treated. You were Army medic, Daniel asked, sitting across from her. Yeah, 2 deployments to Afghanistan. What happened? Jessica stared at her coffee. Lost my arm to an IED. Lost my husband to divorce. Lost my daughter to custody court. Her voice was flat. After a while, you run out of things to lose. I'm sorry. Don't be, it is what it is. Daniel leaned forward. It doesn't have to stay that way. What do you mean? I mean you have options. Housing, job training, medical care, legal assistance if you want to fight for custody. He paused. A fresh start. Jessica laughed bitterly. Fresh start, right? I've heard that before. From who? VA, social services, that shelter downtown that kicked me out for missing curfew. She shook her head. Everyone promises. Nobody delivers. We're different. That's what they all say. Daniel stood up and walked to the window. You see those houses out there, 57 of them. Every single one was built by our program for a veteran who was living on the streets. Jessica followed his gaze. You built all those? We did. Me and the Hells Angels and 1,000 volunteers who believe that veterans deserve better. He turned back to face her. House number 58 is sitting empty right now, finished last week. I've been waiting for the right person. And you think that's me? I don't think, I know. Jessica's eyes glistened. You don't know anything about me. I know you served your country. I know you sacrificed. I know you're still fighting even when you think you've given up. Daniel walked back and crouched in front of her. I know because I see myself in you, the person I was 1 year ago. Broken, hopeless, ready to die. What changed? Someone gave me a chance. Someone believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. He put a hand on her shoulder. Let me do the same for you. Jessica broke. The tears came hard and fast, years of pain pouring out in sobs that shook her whole body. Daniel didn't say anything. He just held her. Some things don't need words. The next morning, Daniel took Jessica to see her new home. House 58 sat at the end of the block, freshly painted smoke rising from the chimney. This is mine, Jessica whispered. All yours. She walked through the front door like she was entering a church, touching the walls, running her hand along the countertops, staring at the bedroom like she'd never seen one before. I haven't slept in a real bed in 2 years. You will tonight. Jessica turned to face him. Why? Why would you do this for a stranger? Daniel thought about the question, about Axel lying in the snow, about his last can of beans, about all the choices that had led to this moment. Because 1 year ago, someone did it for me, and I made a promise. What promise? That I would spend the rest of my life paying it forward, that I would never let another veteran die forgotten on the streets. He smiled. You're not a stranger, Jessica. You're family now. She hugged him, fierce, desperate, like she was holding on to life itself. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. Welcome home, soldier. That evening, Daniel called a meeting at headquarters. The conference room was packed. Axel, Tank, Ghost, Preacher, Razor, Emma, Dr. Chen, Colonel Morrison from Chicago. Representatives from chapters in Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, and a dozen other cities. Plus something new. Lieutenant Sarah Torres, daughter of the man Daniel had tried to save in Ramadi, had joined the organization 3 months ago. She ran the Washington, D.C. chapter now. All right, listen up. Axel stood at the head of the table. 1 year ago today, Daniel Foster saved my life in a blizzard. Since then, we've accomplished things I never thought possible. He clicked a remote. Numbers appeared on the screen behind him. 57 houses built in Detroit, 234 nationwide. Over 1,000 veterans housed, employed, and receiving medical care. $12 million raised. And counting. Applause rippled through the room. But we're not here to celebrate. Axel's voice grew serious. We're here because the work isn't done. There are already 40,000 homeless veterans in America, 40,000 soldiers who served their country and got nothing in return. The room went quiet. The president's initiative is helping, but government moves slow. We move fast. Axel looked around the table. I want to double our capacity this year. New chapters in every major city. 1,000 more houses built. 10,000 more veterans served. Tank whistled. That's ambitious, boss. Ambitious is what we do. Axel turned to Daniel. What do you think, brother? Can we do it? Daniel stood up slowly. All eyes turned to him. 1 year ago, I was ready to die. I had nothing left. No food, no hope, no reason to keep going. He paused. Then I made a choice. I chose to help a stranger instead of saving myself. That choice changed everything. He looked around the room at the faces watching him. Every person in this room has made that same choice. You've chosen to give instead of take, to build instead of destroy, to help instead of look away. His voice grew stronger. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us unstoppable. Daniel walked to the window. I used to think my life ended in Ramadi. When Williams and Torres died, a part of me died with them. I spent 17 years carrying that guilt. 17 years believing I was a failure. He turned back to face the room. But I wasn't a failure. I was a man who tried. A man who ran into fire to save his brothers. A man who refused to give up even when giving up would have been easier. His eyes found Lieutenant Torres. Sarah, your father didn't die alone. He died knowing someone was coming for him. That mattered. That mattered more than I ever understood. Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes. Every veteran we save, every house we build, every life we change, it's not just about them. It's about honoring everyone we've lost. Williams, Torres, all the soldiers who came home broken, all the ones who didn't come home at all. Daniel's voice filled the room. Can we double our capacity? Can we build 1,000 houses? Can we change 10,000 lives? He smiled. We can do anything, because we're not just an organization. We're a family, and family takes care of each other. The room erupted in cheers. Axel grinned. I think that's a yes. Later that night, Daniel stood alone on the porch of his house. The same house the Hells Angels had built for him 1 year ago. The brass plaque still hung by the door. The bronze star still gleamed above the fireplace. But so much had changed. He wasn't the same man who had crawled out of that blizzard. He was stronger, healthier, whole in ways he hadn't been for 17 years. The door opened behind him. Emma stepped out, carrying 2 cups of hot chocolate. Thought you might want some company. Always. She handed him a cup and stood beside him, looking out at the snow-covered neighborhood. 57 houses, she said softly. All because you gave away your last can of beans. Doesn't feel real sometimes. It's real, Dad. All of it. I know. He sipped his hot chocolate. I just never expected any of this. I thought I was going to die in that shack. I'd made peace with it. What changed? Daniel thought about the question. Axel. When I saw him lying in the snow, something woke up inside me. Something I thought was dead. He paused. I couldn't let him freeze. I couldn't watch another person die when I had the power to help. That's who you've always been, Dad, even when you forgot it. Maybe. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Dad, yeah, I'm proud of you. Daniel felt his throat tighten. I'm proud of you too, Em. You stuck by me even when I didn't deserve it. You always deserved it. You just couldn't see it. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Happy anniversary, Dad. Happy anniversary. The snow continued to fall. Somewhere across the city, another veteran was sleeping in a warm bed for the first time in years. Somewhere across the country, a Hells Angels chapter was breaking ground on another house. Somewhere in Washington, a bill was being drafted to expand veteran services. All because one man chose kindness over survival. All because one act of compassion sparked a revolution. The next morning brought unexpected news. Daniel was at headquarters when his phone rang. Mr. Foster, this is Margaret Williams. Daniel's heart stopped. Williams, Sergeant Williams, the man he'd pulled from the burning Humvee in Ramadi. Mrs. Williams, I'm his mother. The voice was old, tired, but warm. I've been trying to reach you for months. I don't know what to say. Then let me say it. I've seen what you've built. I've read the stories. I've watched the news coverage. Her voice cracked. My son died in your arms 17 years ago. For 17 years, I blamed you. I blamed the Army. I blamed God. Daniel couldn't breathe. But then I saw your press conference. I heard you talk about running into that burning vehicle, about trying to save my boy, about carrying the guilt ever since. Margaret Williams began to cry. You didn't kill my son, Mr. Foster. You tried to save him. You risked your life for him. I'm sorry. Daniel's voice broke. I'm so sorry I couldn't bring him home. You did bring him home. You brought him home to me in spirit. Every veteran you save, every life you change, my son is part of that. His memory lives on in your work. Daniel was weeping now, 17 years of guilt pouring out. Thank you, he managed. Thank you for calling. No, thank you for not giving up, for making my son's death mean something. Margaret paused. He would be proud of you, Daniel. So proud. I hope so. I know so. A mother knows. The call ended. Daniel sat at his desk for a long time staring at nothing. Then he wiped his eyes, stood up, and got back to work. There were veterans to save. That afternoon, Daniel received another visitor. He was in his office when Tank knocked on the door. "Boss, there's someone here to see you." "Who?" "Says his name is Henderson, from Henderson's Manufacturing." Daniel's jaw tightened. Henderson, the man who had rejected him for a job 1 year ago, the man who had only shown up after the cameras arrived. "Send him in." Henderson entered slowly. He looked different, older, humbled. "Mr. Foster, thank you for seeing me. What do you want?" "To apologize again, properly this time." Henderson sat down without being invited. "A year ago, I came to your construction site and offered you a job. You turned me down. You were right to." "I know. I was an opportunist. I saw the cameras and wanted to be part of the story. I didn't actually care about helping veterans." He paused. "But something changed." "What?" "I watched what you built. I saw the houses go up. I saw the veterans get jobs. I saw the whole neighborhood transform." Henderson's voice was thick. "My father was a veteran. Korea. He never talked about it, but I know he struggled. If a program like this had existed back then..." He trailed off. "Why are you here, Mr. Henderson?" "Because I want to help, really help. Not for the cameras, not for the penis." He leaned forward. "Henderson Manufacturing is donating $5 million to the Veterans Home Initiative. And we're offering jobs to any veteran who wants one. Real jobs. With benefits. With futures." Daniel studied him. "You're serious?" "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." Henderson met his eyes. "I was wrong about you, Mr. Foster. Wrong about everything. Let me make it right." "Me?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. $5 million. And jobs for as many veterans as you can send us. That's a lot. It's not enough, but it's a start." Daniel stood and extended his hand. Henderson shook it. "Welcome to the family, Mr. Henderson." Thank you. Thank you for giving me a second chance." "That's what we do here. Second chances are our specialty." 6 months later, the Veterans Home Initiative celebrated a milestone. 500 houses built nationwide, 5,000 veterans served, $25 million raised, chapters in every state. The celebration was held in Detroit, where it all began. Hundreds of people gathered in the neighborhood that had once been abandoned lots and broken dreams. Daniel stood on a makeshift stage, looking out at the crowd. Veterans in their new homes, bikers in their leather vests, volunteers from every walk of life, politicians, celebrities, regular people who had been inspired to help. And in the front row, the people who mattered most. Emma, Axel, Tank, Ghost, Preacher, Razor, Dr. Chen, Colonel Morrison, Lieutenant Torres, Jessica Martinez, Robert Jackson. All the veterans whose lives had been transformed. Margaret Williams was there too. She'd flown in from Ohio to see what her son's legacy had become. Daniel stepped to the microphone. 18 months ago, I was dying in a shack. The crowd went silent. I had nothing, no food, no hope, no reason to live. I had given up. I was ready to die. He paused. Then a man crashed his motorcycle outside my door. A stranger. Someone I'd never met. And I had a choice. Stay warm and let him freeze. Or risk everything to save him. Daniel's eyes found Axel in the crowd. I chose to help, not because I was brave, not because I was noble, but because I couldn't watch another person die when I had the power to prevent it. His voice grew stronger. That choice changed my life, but it didn't change me. It reminded me of who I always was, a soldier who doesn't leave anyone behind, a man who believes that every life has value, a human being who knows that kindness is the most powerful force on earth. He looked out at the sea of faces, 500 houses, 5,000 veterans, millions of dollars raised. These numbers are incredible, but they're not what matters. He pointed to the crowd. What matters is Robert Jackson, who spent 3 years under a bridge and now has a home and a book and a reason to smile. What matters is Jessica Martinez, who lost everything and found it again. What matters is every single person whose life has been touched by this program. Daniel felt tears burning in his eyes. We didn't build a housing program. We built a family A family that spans the entire country. A family that proves what's possible when people choose compassion over indifference. He raised his hand toward the skyman. To everyone we've lost. Williams, Torres, all the veterans who didn't make it. This is for you. Everything we've built. Everything we will build. It's all for you. The crowd erupted in applause, but Daniel wasn't finished. To everyone still out there, every veteran sleeping under a bridge, every soldier fighting demons alone, every hero who's been forgotten. His voice rang across the neighborhood. We're coming for you. We will find you. We will save you, because no one gets left behind, not anymore, not ever again. The applause became a roar. People were crying, cheering, hugging each other. Daniel stepped back from the microphone. Axel climbed onto the stage and embraced him. Hell of a speech, brother. Meant every word. I know you did. Axel pulled up back and looked him in the eyes. You know what you did right. You changed the world, one can of beans at a time. Daniel laughed. Couldn't have done it without you. Wouldn't have been alive to do anything without you. Axel grinned. We're even. We're family. Same thing. That night, Daniel sat alone in his house. The bronze star hung above the fireplace. The silver star sat beside it now. The brass plaque still marked his door. He thought about everything that had happened. Every life saved. Every house built. Every veteran brought home. He thought about Williams and Torres. About the burning Humvee. About the guilt he'd carried for so long. And he realized something. The guilt was gone. Not forgotten. Never forgotten. But transformed. What had once been a weight dragging him down was now a foundation lifting him up. Every veteran he saved was a tribute to the men he couldn't save. Every house he built was a monument to their memory. Every life he changed was proof that their sacrifice meant something. Daniel closed his eyes. I hope I made you proud, brothers, he whispered. I hope I finally made it count. Outside, the wind picked up. Another storm was coming. But Daniel wasn't afraid anymore. He was ready. The next morning, his phone rang. Daniel, it's Tank. We got 3 more. Where? Riverside, under the old bridge? They're in bad shape. Daniel grabbed his jacket. I'm on my way. Some things never changed, and some things never would, because Daniel Foster had made a promise to never leave anyone behind, a promise to honor the fallen by saving the living, a promise to prove that one act of kindness can change the world. And he intended to keep that promise every single day for the rest of his life. The snow began to fall as Daniel stepped outside. He looked up at the gray sky and smiled. 1 year ago, a blizzard had nearly killed him. Today, a blizzard was just another opportunity, another veteran to save, another life to change, another chance to prove that hope is stronger than despair, that love is stronger than hate, that family is stronger than anything. Daniel climbed into his truck and drove toward the bridge, toward the next veteran who needed saving, toward the next chapter of a story that would never end. Because as long as there was one soldier sleeping in the cold, Daniel Foster would be there, ready to fight, ready to serve, ready to bring them home. One meal, one house, one life at a time. That was his mission. That was his purpose. That was his legacy. And it was only just beginning.